Welcome to Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum sponsored by Capital Community TV and the League of Women Voters of Marion and Polk Counties. My name is Bernadine Anderson, and I am a member of the League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan political organization that works to educate ourselves and the public about government issues and encourages public involvement in our civic system. In this program, we will present the candidates for the Salem City Council, Position 8. They are alphabetically James Lewis and Mickey Varney. Our format for this forum is as follows. Each candidate has 3 minutes to give an opening statement outlining the candidate's background and top 3 priorities if elected. Following that, each candidate will be given a minute and a half to answer questions that have been prepared by the League members on current issues. The candidates were not given the questions ahead of time. At the end, the candidates will have 2 minutes to make a closing statement in which to state the legacy they would like to leave if elected to the office. The question order will rotate, so we will begin with Mr. Lewis as candidate A for his opening remarks. Mr. Lewis?
Thank you, and I want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us here today. My top 3 priorities go like this. First of all, the city budget. Like any home, you need to be careful about your income and your spending, and that's exactly what the city does also. We are in the current city budgeting system right now, and we're using an entity that's called priority-based budgeting. It's new for the city, and I'm excited about where it will lead us. But the budget is the first issue. Second, for me, is the citywide issue of addressing homelessness. The city has made an attempt in the last couple of years to work with private and public entities to start working and resolving this issue, and I believe that we are moving in the correct direction. The third and most important to the people that I listen to in Ward 8, and that is the completion of the Salem River crossing. We've spent over 12 years and over $8 million on this effort, and we are one step away from getting to what they call the record of decision, which would allow us to do the final engineering, the final design, and the final funding. That one step is something that we should be able to do this year, and that is responding to the Land Use Board of Appeals on the 3 remands that they sent back to the city for the purpose of explanation. Those are my top priorities. They're certainly not all the priorities that the city faces at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Varney, your opening statements.
Well, thank you. And thank you to the League of Women Voters and CCTV for putting this on. It's a great opportunity to reach out and help others get to know us a bit better. West Salem is at a big crossroads. We continue to grow in population, but our infrastructure and services haven't kept up with the growth that is occurring. So that is key to me, is looking at how we can address that. My priorities are, number 1, our traffic congestion issues. And in terms of solutions, we need to move forward on getting a 3rd bridge, definitely. That will help alleviate some of our traffic congestion, but it won't relieve all of it. We've got congestion all around the city. I mean, over on Mission Street, over on Commercial, all over, in addition to just crossing back and forth between West Salem and downtown. So that is also why I put forward an 8-point plan to implement things we can do in the short term to address congestion. Number 2 of my priorities is public safety. I want to make sure we get Fire Station 11 open, but also when it comes to public safety, it's looking at the future in terms of being prepared for emergencies. And I want to make sure, because West Salem is separated from the rest of Salem, and because we're dependent on Salem for our water and our sewer, we need to look at options down the road so that if something happens and we do get cut off, we are prepared for that. And then third of all, my 3rd priority is livability. Just West Salem is a wonderful place to live, and as it keeps growing, I want to focus on services and just areas, places. We need to make sure that we have the businesses that we need over there, maybe so we don't have to go across the bridge as much. And then mobility is a big one, being able to just get around town and go to the different places. I also think it's very important to have activities for families, places to gather, and it needs to be inviting. So those are the things I am looking at in terms of increasing livability in West Salem.
Ms. Varney, first question.
Okay.
Why are you qualified for this position?
Well, first of all, being on City Council is an extension of, I have been volunteering in communities and been involved my whole life, and this is an extension of it. But in terms of qualifications, I bring a diverse toolbox to the position. I was a high school science teacher. I was a previous city councilor in Washington State. I am a biologist analyst, so I tend to look at things in a problem-solving sense and look with the data and ask lots of questions. And then as an individual that's been active in the community all the time, the volunteer activities I do, the people I get to know, the connections, those all tie into the big picture that make you a very competent, help you be a counselor that truly represents your constituents.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
If you could repeat the question just so I can get it right.
What are your qualifications for this position?
Okay. I've been serving the city of Salem as a volunteer for the last 13 and a half years, 10 years on the city's planning commission. 3 of those years were as its president and 4 were as its vice president. I've been currently on the city's council for almost 3.5 years, and I've been appointed by the mayor to be on some of the most important task force and committees that the city is now working on, including the Downtown Homeless Task Force and the Congestion Relief Task Force. I'm proud to be asked by the mayor to be on these crucial task force. I believe I bring a level of common sense to the issues, and I've got the experience that helps me each day. The more I learn, the better I can do, and I feel qualified. I was told at the beginning of the council term, it'll take you a couple of years to get your feet wet and understand, and that is exactly correct. But those 2 years are now over, and I feel confident that I can support and help the city in its future and in its current situations.
Thank you. Our question 2, it goes to Mr. Lewis. If elected, what steps would you take to improve the transparency of your office?
Well, I believe that the city is currently improving its transparency. There are many ways that you can communicate. The city is open. Myself, I started 2.5 years ago at the beginning of my second year. A simple idea of meeting folks at the Urban Grange coffee shop the Tuesday after city council meetings. And at first, when I started, there was nobody there, but I continued to invite people. I have an ad in the West Side newspaper on a monthly basis that encourages folks to come down and give me a piece of their mind at the Urban Grange, 8:30 to 10 on the Tuesdays after the city council meetings. And I am very excited that the folks that are now starting to recognize that that opportunity is there to speak with their counselor, they are taking that opportunity. And it's been a great deal of enjoyment for me to be able to sit down with folks and talk about what's important to them.
Ms. Varney?
Could you please repeat the question?
If elected, what steps would you take to improve the transparency of the office?
Well, I think the city is doing a great job in terms of reaching out to people more, and that is really, really key because people ask questions and then we respond and they have a better idea of what is going on, and that is really, really key, and we need to make sure we have things in place so that we continue to do that and continue to grow. I look at, for instance, the public meetings on the Riverfront Park modifications, the cityscape, things where the public is involved. That's really, really key. Now, in terms of communicating through transparency, I agree with Councilor Lewis that it's important to have monthly meetings or weekly or meeting after the council meeting so that people can stop in and ask questions. But I would have my meetings either in the evening or in the morning, because we have so many people that work. Those meetings really need to be accessible instead of at 10 in the morning. So that is one change I would do. And then our monthly newspaper, the West Side News, I would really like to put a column in there that outlines what is going on in the council and things that might be of interest to West Salem residents.
Our question 3 goes to Ms. Varney. What improvements would you advocate in the city council system?
The city council system. Oh, again, the transparency is really, really key, and I think we need to focus on that. As I said, with the Riverfront Park and the cityscape and the public involvement in the development of the strategic plan. I mean, those were all key and really, really important, and I want to continue doing that. If I had to pick a particular improvement, I would like to review and modify our ordinances that involve that transparency and public involvement to make sure that we're reaching out to everyone. The reason I say that is because I was absolutely appalled when the issue on the Lone Oak Reimbursement District came up, and I learned that all this was going on and the neighborhood association had not been informed of what was going on. And when that question was asked at a council meeting, it said that, well, the ordinance didn't require us to do that. And so I would change that one.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis,
The question, please.
what improvements would you advocate in the city council system?
You know, I guess to be honest, I would encourage the city to continue its efforts in being more transparent and more welcoming to the citizens of Salem. I think that those efforts are being made now, and at some point, what we really need to do is encourage folks to speak up. As a counselor for 3.5 years, there have been multiple issues where there have been just a few people, and a lot of times they're the same people that come and speak in front of the council. And what we really need is to encourage folks to step up. It's their city. They need to give the council their opinions. And I recognize that it's hard to come. The meetings are in the evening. But it's also possible to communicate with the city through other means, such as their website. And I encourage people, I encourage folks to get involved. That's what makes the democracy work the best. As far as changing, you know what, we could always change some things. I go back to what Benjamin Franklin said after the Continental Congress had formed the government that we have today. Came out and spoke to the reporters in those terms and said, we just created the worst kind of government man has ever created, except for all the rest. So I think we do have something going for us.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis, question 4. How do you feel the city council should answer the situation of homeless shelter expansion, and how does this reflect your ideas about our homeless population?
Well, I'm proud to be working on the downtown homeless task force. I believe that is the primary area in town where the issue has become more predominant. I am an avid fan of the Housing First initiative that the city has taken up. That is recognizing that you really can't do anything to help folks until they have a place to sleep, a place to take a shower, a place to put their stuff. And until that is addressed, until we have enough places for people to stay, we're really not going to be able to address the issue completely. And so I am a fan of creating those places, whether it be the expansion of the Union Gospel Mission or whether it be the new development out on Portland Road that will have affordable housing in conjunction with services. The youth homeless shelter that is being created now. All those things will lead us in the right direction. They will put us in a place to be successful. But housing has to come first, and the city is working with the nonprofits and the for-profit folks in town to accomplish just that.
Ms. Varney, how do you feel the city council should answer the situation of homeless shelter expansion, and how does this reflect your ideas about our homeless population?
Well, I'm really pleased with the steps the city has taken in the last couple years with developing partnerships and moving forward with the Housing First initiative, which is the rental assistance program that has really helped a number of individuals, but we need to do more. And part of that is looking at needs outside of housing, but of course, including housing. They need housing, storage, showers, mental health services. They need a place where they have an address, a place that they can get help finding jobs, places for families, and where food is available. So I think looking at what other cities have done and building upon that are key to being able to provide some of those services, because what we need to do is provide a helping hand. Homeless have hit upon kind of adverse times for one reason or another, and we need to just give them a hand to help them get out of there. It's not a permanent thing. I'm also really happy with the task force, the Downtown Homeless Task Force, with some of the things they have come up with in terms of just narrow, short-term solutions we can do to help while we're addressing the larger problem.
Well, here's the question you've both been expecting. An additional bridge is an ongoing topic in our community. How do you respond to the various statements made about the need for a third bridge? And Ms. Varney, you start us off.
Yeah, it is a big topic. Probably the biggest one here in Ward 8. Well, traffic congestion overall is not just the bridge. It's a regional problem. It's our city, it's regional. In fact, Mayor Bennett at the State of the City address said that congestion is a problem that's not going to be solved by a third bridge. And that's why I'm an advocate of not only the bridge, but also the short-term solutions. But a third bridge will definitely help alleviate the problem. So I do support a third bridge, but I do not support closing the Rosemont exit, and I do not support the tolling of all three bridges. I think tolls are regressive and that they will impact those that can really not afford them at all the greatest. And so we need to address the problem not only for what we're seeing now, but we also need to plan for the future. And so one thing I really, really want to make sure we do is a destination origin study, so we know the folks that are using the bridge, where are they coming from and where are they going to? And how can we address that? You know, do we need something at the north, at the south? And we really need that. Those studies haven't been done since the 70s. And that would be key to finding out what we could do that would help the most and plan for the future.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
Question again.
Oh, certainly. An additional bridge is an ongoing topic in our community. How do you respond to the statements made about the need for a third bridge?
Well, I would say the need is crystal clear. We've been talking about it from a need standpoint for decades. We have been working on the specific Salem River crossing for over 10 years, spending over $8 million. As I mentioned before, we are one step away from, and that step is responding to the Land Use Board of Appeals on the three issues that they sent back to the city to look at. Once that is done, we can get to the record of decision, which is, I refer to it as the hall pass. We can't really start talking about the specific designing, the engineering, the funding, or the construction until we get to the record of decision. What we have done before that and where we are right now is the Salem River Crossing study, which shows all kinds of options. As far as closing the Rosemont exit, in the preferred alternative, and I'll read it to you, it says, and I quote, relocate Oregon 22 interchange from Rosemont Avenue Northwest to Eola Drive Northwest. The idea of just closing the Rosemont exit is ridiculous. And I don't think anybody that uses common sense would realize that that wouldn't cause a great deal of frustration, anxiety, and damage to the West Salem area. That's why when you talk about closing the Rosemont exit, you have to also talk about the opening of a different exit, a better exit, in the same area, but not at Rosemont. I can guarantee the voters, the Rosemont exit will not close unless there's another exit opened in that area. The aspect of tolling, I'll have to get to later.
Thank you. So, Mr. Lewis, do you feel that the resources, both financial and personnel, allotted to the City Council are adequate to fulfill the responsibilities?
Well, like any family, you have to live within your means. Could the city use more money to provide more services? You bet they could. Do they have those resources? No. We are on a limited budget, just like most families are. And the best thing about the budgeting cycle this time around is we are using priority-based budgeting, which means that we're focusing, just like a family, we're focusing on what's most important to us. When it comes to the city of Salem, I believe the most important thing is public safety. That's where our money should go first, and we should be dealing with other things based on the amount of money we have. If it comes time that we want to do extra things, the city of Salem voters have been very generous with their money. We've passed over the last 2 years alone 2 ballot measures that will bring us a new police facility and also upgrade our library. So the willingness to put in money is there. It's been shown. I was the co-chair of the Streets and Bridges bond measure in 2008. Not the best time to be floating a $100 million bond. It's the greatest recession any of us have seen. But yet the citizens of Salem stepped up and passed that bond measure because they felt as though that the money was going to be spent wisely and on things that are needed. So I have great faith that even though we are on a limited budget, like every family, the city has the ability to do what it can and does it well. And when it comes to doing extra things, the city has shown that it will participate with its money to get things done.
Ms. Varney, do you feel that the resources, both financial and in personnel, allotted to the City Council are adequate to fulfill those responsibilities?
I interpret your question a little bit differently. I agree with Councilor Lewis in terms of budget being adequate and how supportive all the citizens in Salem have been of it. But I look at it, your question more as, do I have the resources available to be a good counselor?
Okay.
And so what I want to say is have seen the staff presentations, the staff reports, the way they support the counselors who are running the task forces and the mayor, and that has all been wonderful. But having not actually been on the council, I don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. I know that when I was a counselor before, I ask a lot of questions. And so I don't really know the process in terms of when I ask a question, how timely the answers are, how much I can keep building on them if it's a complete answer. So are the staff resources adequate there for me to come up with an answer and make decisions? Because I take my responsibility of making sound decisions very, very seriously. And that is an important part of it, is having the staff and the information to be able to make those decisions.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to go ahead and look at our closing remarks. And Ms. Varney, we will begin with you for your closing remarks.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Well, I thought closing remarks, and I think in the note about the thing was legacy, and I thought an interesting way to say this what would I leave? I would like someone to be able to say that as a counselor, I did a great job on the council, and that I made sure that services and programs were adequately funded, that I had reduced congestion and had a plan for future growth, that I ensured that we had transparency in all the actions that we take. I would be really honored if someone said that I had been a consensus builder and had focused on solutions so that we can get things done. Address the Detroit drawdown issue to make sure that our water system wasn't compromised. And also the livability of West Salem, all the things that I pointed out previously. So in terms of what I bring or what I would like to say is those are the things I would love, and it would be really, really important to me to have someone say, yes, Mickey accomplished that.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis.
You know, as far as legacy is concerned, it's not about me. You know, there's a plaque as you walk on the Minto Island Bridge from downtown Salem, and my name is on that plaque. And I, quite frankly, am a little embarrassed by that. To pick out some people and put their name on a plaque, I think, is inappropriate when it was a citywide effort. But those that are in the driver's seat usually get the publicity, and I've never really been a big fan of that. Maybe the better way to answer the question is, how do I want to be remembered? You know, that I was involved and gave back to my community. That is something that I've striven to do since 1980 when I first got involved with volunteer work. I'd like to be remembered that I tried to do the best that I could when it came down to it. That I worked with others in an effort to help Salem grow, and that I left Salem better than when I found it. Those are all things that if people can talk about me that way when I'm gone, I'll be satisfied.
Thank you.
Makes sense.
Thank you to our candidates and to Capital Community TV. This is all the time we have. You've been watching Your Vote Counts, a candidate forum interview for City Council Position 8 with Mr. James Lewis and Ms. Mickey Varney. We hope you will watch our other candidate forums, and please see the CCTV website for time and dates. These forums are a public service to voters to become more acquainted with candidates who hope to lead our city, county, and state governments in the coming years. Ballots have been mailed and should be returned by May 15th by 8 p.m., remembering that your postmarks do not count. We urge you to make democracy work and be a voter. This is Vernadine Anderson for the League of Women Voters and CCTV. Thank you for watching. Your vote counts.